this transmission with the following ideas. We understand that the topic at hand, as you say, is the concept of time travel and other worlds. And we would like to begin this transmission with a question. But first, the statement. Many of you now begin to understand, metaphysically and also even scientifically, that time, in a sense, is an illusion. So the question is, if time is an illusion, isn't time travel an illusion as well? The answer, in sense, is yes, it is. Now, you must understand there is a difference between experience and the actual structure of existence. Because the structure of existence is one thing. But you can create certain kinds of experiences, perspectives of that structure, points of view of that structure that can give you the experience that something is happening, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's actually mechanically what's happening according to the structure, even though the experience itself is very real to you when you're having it. So let us explain this concept. The idea is now, and again, your scientists are beginning to understand this, is that everything exists here and now. Everything really is the same moment. There is only one moment in creation. And what you call different moments is really the same moment from different points of view. You have created an experience you call linear space-time, but that doesn't actually mean things actually happen one after another. Let us give you a little bit of an analogy for how the reality is actually structured. We often use analogies of the technologies you have on your planet to make the illustration something that you can relate to. So in this instance, we will utilize the very popular analogies on your planet of television and film. You understand that if you're watching a program on your television set, and you are on one of your channels, for example, channel 2, you know that if you change the channel from 2 to 4 and are now seeing a different program, it does not mean that the program on channel 2 no longer exists. It still exists at the same time. It is still accessible if you decide to change the channel back. And both programs are simultaneously being broadcast. But you only perceive the one that your channel is tuned to, because that's a particular frequency and that reality is representative of that frequency. Likewise, the idea of film is that even though you perceive the story unfolding from moment to moment to moment, and the frames of film are proceeding through the projector one frame after another, if you are actually the projectionist, you know that you can look at all the frames at the same time. They all exist at once. You can stretch out the film strip and see dozens of frames simultaneously. But you know that the illusion of one frame, one moment coming after another is created when you flow that film strip through the projector and project it onto the screen to create the illusion of movement and change. This is actually, in a sense, how physical reality works. It's how it's actually structured. The idea really is to begin with the question, what actually is time? So let us address the idea of what time is to begin with, so that we can then, after that explanation, further address the concept that you experience as time travel. What is time? Good question. Thank you. I'll answer that. Understand, as we have just explained, the idea of the different frames on a film strip. One frame exists completely independently of another. Likewise, the idea of physical reality, space-time experience, is the product of your consciousness shifting from one parallel reality to another, and another, and another, and another, like a projector light, shining through frames of film, but your consciousness skips and shifts through those independent parallel reality frames literally billions of times per second. By shifting from one frame to another, one parallel reality to another, billions of times per second, you create the effect, the side effect, the experience and illusion of change, movement, time. Because each frame, just like on the film strip, each parallel reality, just like a frame, has no time, no movement, timeless, frozen snapshot. This is one parallel reality. This is another parallel reality in total. This is another, and another, and another, and another, and another, and another. You are literally shifting your consciousness through billions of frozen snapshots to create the illusion of movement and change, and that side effect is called time. Therefore, because all parallel realities, all frames exist at once, when you experience the idea called time travel, which in a sense you're doing all the time anyway by shifting from one parallel reality to another, billions of times a second, you're already time traveling. But the idea is that you are shifting to another parallel reality that is completely independent of the parallel reality moment you may have experienced a moment ago. Let's run over this again. The idea in your classic science fiction works is that when you step into your so-called time machine and you go to the so-called past or the so-called future, which again, from our perspective, actually simultaneously coexist with what you call the present, the idea is that you're not actually stepping into your own past or your own future. You are actually simply experiencing another parallel reality simultaneously coexistent with your own that simply happens to be at a place in its history that to you appears to be the future, or to you appears to be the past, but it's not your past. It's not your future. You weren't there. You were in another parallel reality past, another parallel reality future. But you have slipped over to one that seems so similar to what you experienced in your parallel reality past that you think it's the same one, and in fact, it is not. Therefore, there can actually be no such thing as the so-called grandfather paradox. Is there anyone who is not familiar with that idea of the grandfather paradox? All right. So the idea, as your scientists have proposed it, is the concept that if you are born from your father, from your grandfather in a lineage, and you step into a time machine and go back and murder your grandfather, in classic science fiction time travel, that would mean that your father and you would never have been born, so how could you have gone back into the past and killed anyone? That's the grandfather paradox. But what we are saying is that because it's not actually your past, if you should do this, you are actually going into a parallel reality and killing the grandfather of another version of you, so you will not cease to exist. You will only prevent that version of you in that parallel reality time stream from ever being born, but it will have nothing to do with you whatsoever. Because look at it from the point of view of snapshots, literal photographs, because that's what a parallel reality is, a frozen, timeless snapshot. If you take a photo of your family without you in it, because you're behind the camera, then you will understand that you have never been in that photo. You will never be in that photo. That's the photo that's there. It's a photo of your family without you. Now, if you suddenly time travel to another parallel reality and stand in that photograph, it is a completely different photograph. There is now the photograph without you and the photograph with you. And those two photographs coexist side by side simultaneously as their own independent parallel realities. Time travel is never to your own timeline because you were there and they were not, or they were there and you were not, and that photograph will never alter, ever. So, the idea thus then is that when you perfect the technology that will allow you to slip in and out between parallel realities, you can explore all sorts of parallel realities that are so similar to the reality time stream that you experienced in your past that likely you will not be able to really tell the difference, and likely you can also glean a lot from it. Now, of course, there are parallel realities that are very different from what you experienced in your particular parallel reality stream. So it really just depends, when you time travel, on the degree of difference that you create between the parallel reality you're familiar with and the one that you're going to, or the degree of similarity as to whether or not there's a high degree of relevance in that parallel reality to your parallel reality. So you can learn many things that you may wish to learn about your so-called past by choosing a parallel reality that's so similar that you won't notice any difference, and then you can learn things about that. Or you can shift to a parallel reality that's so different it bears no relation or relevance to your history at all. It's up to you to choose to learn how to dial in the appropriate frequency, just again like changing channels on your television to different programs, as to whether the next program you watch is very similar to the one you were watching before, or so different that they have absolutely no relationship between them. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. So, the idea, of course, now is that this whole transmission is labeled time, travel, and other worlds. Well, I suppose we will simply fulfill the other worlds portion of that title. We are, in that sense, as has been announced, the idea of a hybrid race that was created as an offshoot between the idea of the genetic blending of Earth human and other species, one of which you call the gray. We are, in that sense, what you might call an artificial race. The idea, however, is that we were given a head start. We were put on a planet that, in a sense, was engineered for us. We thus then have an evolution that started in some senses ahead of yours, didn't necessarily have to go through a lot of the same things that you went through in your parallel reality, but we are genetically related, and so in that sense we are family. So thus then we are grateful to you as our ancestors, in that sense, for bringing us into fruition, bringing us into creation, and in return for the gift that you have given us of our creation and our life, and being that we are all family, I ask now in return, what way may we be of service to you in the examination and exploration of your questions and answers?
Greetings, Bashar.
And to you, good day. Speak up and be bold so that all may hear what you have to say.
Greetings, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
Since we have this understanding already that there's no such thing as time...
No. Didn't say that. There is such a thing as the experience of time.
Let me put it this way.
Yes.
There is no such thing as past or future.
Not really.
Therefore, all time as we know it is existing in the present simultaneously.
All things exist at once.
Correct.
Separated in a sense by frequencies that you call different time frames, but would all coexist holographically at once, yes.
Therefore, we can change one version of our past
in the
present.
Yes, you do that all the time.
And we're doing that constantly.
The past does not create the present. The present creates the past.
Therefore,
the idea is that when you change, as we said, you're shifting billions of times per second, you are literally becoming a new person every single moment that you change. Literally, not metaphorically, literally. And if you are literally a new person, then that means that the version of you that is experiencing yourself as a new person in linear space-time with the concepts of future and past means that as soon as you become a new person, you literally have a new past, a new future, a new history. Yes, totally. And therefore, however it is you define yourself in the present will determine actually, literally, how your so-called past affects you or doesn't. Because if you are truly, literally understanding that you are a new person, a different person than was here a moment ago, then you will understand that it's not just about the idea that you no longer are affected by things in the past, it's that you never had those experiences.